I'm sure we're all familiar with the term denial, which happens when an individual refuses to accept reality or what's true. But I'm here to tell you that there's more defense mechanisms that people rarely talk about. Here are the 7 defense mechanisms that we as humans use to protect ourselves from cognitive dissonance. For starters, cognitive dissonance is the physical discomfort we feel whenever we have conflicting ideas, thoughts, or behaviors. So our ego does us a favor and subconsciously use these mechanisms to prevent that from happening. So we're going to skip denial because we already know what that means. So coming up first, we have repression, which is the act of an individual pushing down distressing or painful memories, thoughts, or ideas. So let's say you go through a terrible experience. Instead of dealing with those emotions, you instead bury them down. Up next, we have regression. Don't get those two confused because regression is the act of an individual reverting to a previous developmental stage. So you might lose your job or a bad experience might happen and you throw a temper tantrum or whine and cry like a baby. Next up is rationalization, which happens when an individual tries to justify or explain an unacceptable behavior but refuses to confront the real underlying meaning. So doing a bad thing and trying to make it sound good. Projection, which is also fairly well known, happens when an individual attributes their own unwanted feelings, thoughts, or traits to someone else to avoid acknowledging themselves. So placing what you think and believe onto other people. Displacement, which occurs when an individual redirects their emotions from one target to a less threatening target. So I might get yelled at by my boss at work, and instead of yelling back at them, I go home and yell at my little brother, aka taking your anger out on somebody else. Last but surely not least, reaction formation, which happens when an individual suppresses unacceptable thoughts or feelings by expressing the opposite. So a boy might have this crush on this girl, and instead of acting on those feelings, he instead teases her, messes with her, and makes fun of her, trying to avoid those feelings of having that crush. All in all, as I said at the beginning of the video, these are unconscious behaviors that our egos use to protect us from cognitive dissonance. So we don't do any of these things on purpose, it just happens whenever we feel like we're being attacked or to prevent cognitive dissonance. So don't be too hard on yourself whenever this happens, but it's very important to take accountability for what you say wrong and do wrong. And it's also very important to be knowledgeable of psychological behavior like this because it not only helps us deal with our own emotions and thoughts, but it helps us deal with other people's emotions and thoughts, fostering connection and understanding. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please like, follow, and share. Y'all take care.